glad to see everybody's decided to come back. I'm sure you want to know, so what do we do now? Now that we've voted and we're here, we're going to make some money, what are we going to put it towards? But thank you so much, Robin, for being the activator that you are and bringing all these varied interests. This doesn't happen without somebody at the helm. So you're tremendously lucky to have Robin, and thank you again for thinking of having the county come and talk to everybody. It's great to get out and touch the community. I need to have your questions and your comments because it's only through a conversation that we get to fix this. Senator, I've been here 6 decades tomorrow. So I remember the first 2 decades, it was easy to go out and swim in these waters. Parents didn't worry about kids getting sick from the water. The last 40 years, wow, what happened? We were not paying attention. And it's going to take a lot of work and heavy lifting to get us back to where we were. So thank you for your efforts too at the state. All right, so we passed this in November. Now we have a green light to move on. We have to take a step backwards. Not only did we create a new 1/8 of a penny to raise some funding to do sewers and IAs, but we extended our 1/4 penny, which is something that was the first time done in Long Island and across the country, was to have voters say, we're going to take care of this problem ourselves. And Suffolk County voters have agreed to tax themselves billions of dollars to try and fix this problem. There are 4 components to the Drinking Water Protection Program. It's the 4th one that was changed in the November vote. That's the Assessment Stabilization Reserve Fund. You see that as the 4th bullet here. It's about 25% of the 25% 1/4 penny program. The ASRF was changed in November so that we'll be able to apply monies to both sewer improvements, not extension areas, but improvements to sewers. As technology changes, we need to know that we're putting money into really good technology to stay ahead of this. And then it's going to be shared as well with IA systems. You see a little chart here. The first 10 years has a bit of a swap between sewers and IA systems. It's going to start off small for IAs, heavy for sewers, and then it balances out after about 10 years. And beginning in 2035 through the end of the program in 2060, it'll be split 50-50 as well. This was a negotiated agreement between all the factions in the county legislature to make sure that everybody agreed this is the way that we're going to need to go forward. So it's going to raise, for IAs, about $689 million over the life, and for sewers about $700 million. Okay, so just this past week, we started collecting the 1/8 penny on March 1st. It's probably going to take a couple of months before we start seeing those 1/8 pennies starting to hit bank accounts for Suffolk County. But by the end of the year, we should have a good indication of what those first 10 months have generated. And from there, we'll be able to make better projections as we go. It'll be collected through 2060, excuse me. And the anticipated revenue over the program is $2.68 billion. So you'll see the split, $1.34 billion between sewers and IAs, those systems. These are general revenue projections that we've put together. They're based on 2023 funds that we know have been collected, so they're pretty solid numbers. We don't have 2024 yet. We don't expect them to be too different, so these numbers are fairly dependable as we go. Every time numbers get updated, we'll try and keep those updates someplace accessible to the public. We're hoping to be able to put up a web page at the county that'll have a bibliography of all the important studies, scientific references that we've been able to accumulate since about 2014, when we had the first IBM Smart Cities program that really jettisoned a lot of these studies. And as numbers come through and audits get done on the 1/8 penny program, which I'll talk about a little bit down, a couple slides down, we'll try and keep all that data accessible to the public so that you have, the public voted for it, so you guys need to know where this money is going and who's handling it. Okay, so the first thing that we were charged with in January is corralling 21 cats. Those are going to be the 21 members of this new board of trustees, which was a requirement under the state law. And they come from all factions: labor, environment, legislatures, town representatives, village representatives, all throughout Suffolk County. And those folks have been assembled into a resolution that was just laid on the table at the legislature. That's the first step in the legislative process of getting a resolution passed, and that just alerts the public, hey, there's something coming up legislatively, and the legislature will vote in early April to approve that slate of 21 members. They'll serve for 2 years, and then we'll go through the system again. They have some very specific obligations under the law. The first thing they have to do by May 1, 2025, so they'll be put to work immediately, is come up with the first implementation plan under the law. And this is very specific. They have to be educated in what type of projects are allowed to access and be eligible for the 1/8. And I'd like to drill down a little bit here on this because it's very important. To be eligible for the fund, it has to be a project that is the subject of the sub-watershed plan that the legislature already adopted. So it's already been filtered through a lot of analysis to know that these are the proper landing places for these types of sewer projects. The implementation plan, IAs will also be addressed as well, and they have to be, it has to meet, if it's IA systems that are being considered by the Board of Trustees, they have to meet certain scientific standards that the Suffolk County Department of Health Services has outlined for the public. This way we know the money's being spent according to state law and to science and to what the voters approved. So there have to be permitted uses for any of these projects, and what that means is it's got to be a water quality improvement project. Planning and the stuff that's, when these 21 members of the board look at it, they may not understand, what do I have to put together to have a proper project? So we'll be outlining it for them based on what's in the charter and the law. So the money can cover planning, design, construction, acquisition of parcels that may be necessary to put some of the infrastructure in, enlargement, extension, alterations of certain existing projects. County, town, and villages that have really good wastewater treatment facilities that need upgraded also, as long as they comport with the Suffolk County Department of Health standards and the law, they'll also be considered as well. Individual septic systems are also permitted uses if they prove that they've got active treatment attached to them that will accomplish the goals of reducing nitrogen. The money is also going to be used for repayment of debt. This is an attempt to make sure that we're spending our money wisely and we're not making things worse for taxpayers. Administrative costs will also be included as proper permitted uses for the funding because we have to be able to run a program. Now, some people have said, oh my goodness, you're going to create a new layer of government. We're not creating a new layer of government. We're pulling together the threads of what we have in both of the very remarkable departments that I've come to know over 14 months in our Department of Public Works and our Department of Health Services. It's like when you have a bunch of toddlers in your house and there's toys everywhere, right? At the end of the day, you put everything in the toy box and everybody's happy again. We're basically creating a very high functioning toy box to make sure that things are all over the county. We're creating methods by which we'll be able to streamline functions and tasks that people have to do to address all of the different 27 sewer systems that we're bringing under one house. And we have a clear path for the Department of Health to know that it can expand because it's going to have more money. It's going to have to expand the grant programs that are in place for IA systems so we can start ramping up the number of IA systems that we want to be able to put in on an annual basis. The other thing that the money will be able to use for is another obligation of the Board of Trustees. Every year they're in charge of making sure that there's an independent audit done of the 1/8 fund. So they're gonna have to pay an auditor to do that, and that will come out of this as well. And last but not least, but very important, the state lawmakers made sure that they put a backstop on this money. So anything that's not expressly provided for in this is strictly prohibited. A lot of people have said, you talk about a lockbox. There's no such thing as a lockbox. I've litigated that issue for 20 years. I know when it works and I know when it doesn't work. And when Fred Thiel made amendments to this law, he was very steadfast that there be express language in here that you cannot use this for whatever you want. So with that, he also built in and sprinkled throughout a number of opportunities for public hearings to occur, and I'll go through that as well. So by the 15th of every year, starting in 2026, it won't happen in 2025, the Board of Trustees will have to come up with a report describing basically all the projects that are going to be funded for the year. Every 5 years, everybody gets to look at this program again, the public, the legislators, Board of Trustees, anybody, and say, hey, what's working and what's not working here? We're not going to stay on basically, a very blind program. If we need more money put in particular programs, if new technology has come along and we see that we need to move money in a different direction, this is the place to do it every 5 years. Okay, I spoke about the audit. This is a cooperative plan between the Board of Trustees. The county exec's office has a role to play here. We'll be in charge of basically drafting reports, assisting the Board of Trustees do their work, answering their questions, making sure they have staff so that they can function. Every time a plan is done, it's got to be subject to a public hearing, and every time an implementation plan is done, it also has to be the subject of a local law. So there'll always be a recorded history of everything that's done with this plan. The elements of the plan itself, it's going to be a list of projects that there'll be a list of projects that will satisfy the definition of what's eligible under the sub-watershed plan. And they have to explain how each one is going to hit the benchmark of proving that it's going to address water quality and reduce nitrogen. It also will allow, to go back, this is important. If there are other local governments that have plans as well, and they come to us and they say, we really want our local village plan. We've got something going on over here, and we realize that we have a creek that's being threatened or whatever. We think we can add something to a local system to improve it and eliminate the problem. We'd like to be considered. We'll take a hard look at that and we'll add it to the list, and the Board of Trustees will have to consider it. And we make all our departments available to the Board of Trustees. We'll call them in, we'll have meetings, we'll review the signs, and we'll see if those local plans comport with what they'd have to participate. So where are we basically with sewers that we're in the middle of making or designing or close to completion? 2 of them basically are done, and that's Carl's River and Central Islip, starting to flow. Carl's River most recently, and Central Islip was basically online at the end of 2024. Construction is still underway in Forge and Kings Park. We're hoping that Kings Park is going to be done by the end of 2025, early 2026, and Forge will probably be wrapping up about the same time. Those will afford some really good opportunities to have some press on this and make a big deal about it, because these communities have waited a very long time for sewers, like many others. Nearing construction, Huntington Station, Holbrook, and right where you're sitting today in Oakdale. We just recently we received confirmation from the feds that our $39.5 million for Oakdale is secured. Yay. So, yep. So we have some next steps that we have to get through before we can hit construction, and I'll speak about that in a minute. So here are this slide is about basically project areas that are both close. That includes 1A. We're hoping to start construction, I think, in 2026, finish it by 2028. Oakdale 1B, still in an engineering design phase, and Forge Phase 3, which is an enormous project, engineering design as well. On the right side, most of these are in engineering design. The public tends to get frustrated when they hear how long sewer projects take. And unfortunately, it's the design stage that's most of the time. We have to send folks out into the field. They have to consider where's the best location for all of the infrastructure, and that includes pipes, pump stations, everything in between. What parcels of land do we need to acquire from folks in order to put this in? It could take months to years to get the design done first, and then construction is like almost an afterthought, because by that time you know exactly where it's going. Folks get frustrated during construction, but I would really ask people to please try and have patience with it. Had we done it 60 years ago, we wouldn't be going through the frustration now of doing it, but we didn't. So it might take a good year to get the construction done from start to finish. And there are some bad days where roads are ripped up and whatnot, and the county will try and stay in touch. The Kings Park experience has been interesting. We keep a website up for them. We stay in touch with town, Department of Highway. We put up electronic signs to warn people, hey, this week the road's gonna be a little bumpy. We try and do a lot of work when kids are not in school to work around things, or large events. So there's a lot of give and take between the community and the county, the engineers, and the folks who are working the job on a day-to-day basis. So this is the Oakdale 1A project. So as I mentioned, $39 million is in federal funding has been secured, and it's fully funded. So there's about 465 parcels that are involved. I hope the people in Oakdale are really excited, because it sounds like they also want to have a referendum on it. And that's great. I'll be meeting with the Oakdale folks, I think, on March 10th. I think the county executive will be with me, and we'll explain to that audience what the referendum process is all about. Hopefully that will go well, and the ballot prop will go up sometime towards the end of in November. If we can get it on the regular general ballot, that'll be good, because it'll be in sync with everybody having to go out to vote anyway. If everything goes well, construction will start the following spring, and then hopefully we'll see completion by the end of 2028. And that'll be nice, because it will certainly go a long way to cleaning up the South Shore. We don't want to leave any piece of the South Shore out. All right, so consolidation of the sewer districts is the big chunk of the wastewater management district. And why are we doing this? Because over the years, 27 districts formulated by themselves, kind of in a solo fashion, of how many people they needed to hire, what were they confronted with in terms of technology needs, what kind of systems were on the market at the time, and the rates tended to vary as a result across all 27 districts. There was no uniformity. So where you had folks in Kings Park paying very little, $157 for an average rate per year, you had folks up in the Huntington area paying close to $1,300 or $1,400 per year. You can't have that. Everybody's buying the same product. It's water, and it's wastewater treatment. So with that, a large part of the justification for asking for the changes and the creation of the district was to even this all out. But it would be very unfair to do it overnight, because folks paying very little, we're suddenly going to be asked to paying a lot more, and that doesn't feel good. So there's a 10-year ramp up in there that will help people acclimate, and then after 10 years, everybody's going to be paying the same thing for the same level of service. Okay. And I think this is my last slide, and that's basically the implementation. So the Department of Health Services, as I said, and the Department of Public Works, they'll maintain what they're doing now. They'll probably just have to hire some more folks, because we certainly anticipate with more money, you have more work. So we're in the process now of hiring folks, getting people trained up, so that hopefully we don't have too many too many delays. There's been some concern about how much delay might be in the system now, but we've done a really hard job this year of going to e-signatures, electronic signatures in our contract works, and Julia will talk about that a little bit, and that's going to save an enormous amount of time for people. So this slide just indicates basically what these two departments do, and everybody will be working under the guise of the Commissioner of the Department of Public Works. He'll maintain, he's basically not the figurehead, but he's basically going to be in charge of the district, and the folks from health will basically be coordinating with him to basically say, this is how many systems we're putting in, this is how much money we need in our grant program, and we'll be working together. We meet now on a very regular basis. We have a task force internally at the county. We meet at least once a week, and we're going to start to have more meetings between the two departments themselves to even out the conversion of the billing system, because now instead of sending out different types of bills to 27 districts in different amounts, we'll be able to convert over time to one bill for everybody on sewers. With that, I'll wait until later for questions, but thank you very much for listening. I'm sorry this was a little dense. You're really going to enjoy Julia's because she has pictures. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. This is so exciting. Thank you again for having us. I'm really glad that you are all here to hear some updates directly from the county so that you can then go ahead and share that information with your communities that you work with. It's a great group to have together, and I'm really glad to provide you with some information, and then as Jennifer mentioned, we're here for questions as well. So first I'll just start off with talking about these innovative and alternative on-site wastewater treatment systems. Very, very long name. And then I'll go into our grant program that the county helps residential homeowners upgrade their sanitary systems. So, what are those on-site wastewater treatment systems, or we call them IAs? There's a lot of different terms around there. It's essentially an advanced septic system. And so I'm happy to share this, a little infographic that was in Newsday a few years back, just to go over the basics, because that's the major difference here, right? We are no longer just putting our wastewater in the ground untreated. So there are many models of these advanced septic systems, and here's how they generally work. There's the primary treatment, where the sewage pipe from the house comes in and wastewater enters the first chamber where solids and sediment are allowed to settle. The water then moves on to the next stage. This is just the settling stage, essentially what a septic tank does right now. The second stage is where we're targeting contaminants. Air is pumped in or somehow enters into this wastewater. That's a major difference. There is no air in a septic tank. So air is pumped in, feeding oxygen to the good bacteria in the water so that they can begin the process of converting nitrogen contaminants into nitrogen gas and oxygen. This is the nitrogen removal process, first step. And then the third step is where the nitrogen removal really is starting to happen. There is some electronic components, like for example, here has a pump. A pump is recirculating the remaining solids and the treated effluent to complete the process, resulting in nitrogen gas, which is an inert gas that's already part of our atmosphere, and oxygen being vented out into the atmosphere. And so essentially what is happening is the wastewater is being treated through this recirculation process where it's exposed to oxygen or exposed to no oxygen. And the bacteria that's in the wastewater is doing the process for us. And all these IA systems do is create the habitat for those good bacteria to do their work. The fourth step is the final dispersal. The final effluent, which represents a 70% reduction in total nitrogen, is released into a leaching structure and dissipates into the ground, which is what happens with every single one of our on-site systems, whether it's a cesspool or septic system. It eventually leaves that system and goes into the ground and enters our groundwater, and which most of the South Shore, we know, enters the Great South Bay eventually, which is why we're all here and we're interested in how can we prevent all that pollution from entering the Great South Bay. And so when we see those IA tanks, whether you're driving down the highway and you see one on the back of a truck, or you see photos of the systems with their lids exposed, this is really what's going on underground. And it's different than a regular conventional septic tank that is really just having us remove our wastewater and never think about it again. So it's pretty funny because now we think about wastewater all the time. Not really the best topic, but here we are. We talk about wastewater all the time. And here at the Health Department, we are regulated by Article 6 of the Suffolk County Sanitary Code. This is what regulates the development of lots and their use and their wastewater disposal all across Suffolk County. This started in 1973, which is when the requirement for a conventional septic system began. So that sounds like a long time ago, but if you think about how much of Suffolk County was developed before 1973, we start thinking about what's underground right now in the majority of the residential and commercial properties. Where is our wastewater going? It's into something that's not a conventional septic system that was required as of 1973. Many homes rely on these block cesspools, which are just stacked up blocks, sometimes bricks. They are very dangerous because they can collapse, and we do see a lot of collapses, but they also have no form of treatment whatsoever. It wasn't even until 1981 that Article 6 of our sanitary code established a minimum lot size for environmental protection based on groundwater priority areas. So think about how many lots were developed prior to 1981. That is why we have so many of these pre-existing non-conforming situations of these small lot sizes. That is not how the county was meant to be developed. It wasn't until 1981 that that became in place. And then there was a lull for quite a long time. In 2017 is when IA systems were now allowed to finally be used. Prior to then, we were not allowed to use IA systems. We were not used to them here. Other jurisdictions began that had very similar situations as us. For example, if you think about Cape Cod or New Jersey or Connecticut, Rhode Island, all of these jurisdictions probably formed the same as us geologically, but also development-wise. And so we learned from those jurisdictions and began revising our sanitary code in 2017 to allow for IA systems and also allow for something we call best fit. We know there's so many of those existing non-conforming lots, and you're trying to put in an advanced treatment unit, and you just cannot always meet all of the standards. So we're trying to make it as useful as possible for all the lots here in Suffolk County to upgrade. In 2019, there was another major update where you can no longer replace an existing cesspool with a cesspool. We know back in 1973 that septic systems were required, but that was only when you were coming into the health department for a permit to build. If you were not, you were able to just keep replacing your cesspool with cesspool. So that loophole was ended in 2019, leading up to 2021, where the requirement for new construction or major renovation of homes and businesses required an on-site wastewater treatment system. We now have to treat our wastewater in Suffolk County when you're going for a permit. And that was a major step. Just to educate some of the folks that are here that may be part of municipal or other jurisdictions, I know that you speak to homeowners all the time about what may be the requirement, and we want to be able to provide you with the most current information. You could always reach out to the health department directly, but just to be familiar with what the health department Office of Wastewater Management requires when it comes to coming in for a permit application. So when a property is installing a new sanitary system, now you do have to come to the health department if you're digging up underground and putting a new system. If you're putting in a new residential dwelling or any new commercial building, if you are replacing that existing dwelling or putting an addition of bedrooms onto the dwelling, or even any type of major reconstruction, if you are adding a swimming pool or a deck or something that makes you need to relocate your sanitary system, come to us for a wastewater permit. And we also get referrals from local town and villages to come to the health department to receive a permit application. However, an IA is not always required when a permit is necessary. There is still times when people can put in a conventional septic system, essentially when you're not doing a major renovation to a property. So there are still opportunities to put in septic systems, which is why we have that incentive for grant funding for IA systems to try to capture every opportunity we can when someone is putting a new sanitary system in. So as I mentioned, IA is now required for all new construction and major renovation projects throughout Suffolk County. And that is since 2021, and we've been starting to see a major increase as a result of that mandate of the IA systems going in the ground. This chart shows the amount of IA systems going in the ground per year on each bar. And so we started back in 2015, 2016, we knew every single one of these systems that were going in, monitoring them, and we started seeing a lot more systems going in based on having grant funding available and also having some mandates that were put in place by local towns. The local towns were putting in their requirements for environmental protection reasons before the county even made it a mandate countywide. So that was always very helpful as well. And now that we see last year, every year an increase in the amount of systems going in is increasing, in addition to the cumulative, which is across the top. And one thing to note here is I don't know if you can tell the color differences. The ones on top in orange are the ones that are grant funded. And then we have ones in blue here, which are not grant funded. That means wastewater treatment is just part of construction now. This is becoming normal. It is now normal to treat your wastewater, which is very good. It's not just being incentivized by grant funding anymore. And so that new construction mandate that the legislature approved in 2021 was very needed. So we do have many models of these advanced wastewater treatment systems. We have proprietary types that have these different names, and we at the health department are the ones that review all these types of systems, sample them for years and years, continue to sample them. Here's a sampling of the systems in the top green box that we have under our general use approval, and then additional systems that are in our provisional use approval. The bottom here has a system called the nitrogen reducing biofilter, lined and boxed. This is a non-proprietary system that the New York State Center for Clean Water Technology at Stony Brook University is developing and testing, and so it's slightly different than the proprietary systems that you see here on the slide. So it is very good to have a diverse amount of different systems that fit each lot. Every single lot is different, and I'll go into some of the complications regarding those different lots in a minute. And then we also have other technologies that are in our lower phases of approval called pilot and experimental use. We meet with other manufacturers of other technologies. Frequently, a lot of attention is on Suffolk County, countrywide. They're all interested in becoming part of our market. But the interesting thing is other jurisdictions, like for example in Maryland, where they do utilize advanced wastewater treatment, their requirement for these advanced wastewater treatment systems is not as stringent as the one we have here. So just because a technology works and is being used in other jurisdictions doesn't mean it passes our requirements. And so that's why we have this phased approval process to start having some systems here in real life, testing them before they advance to the next approval phase. So another great opportunity for me to be here to talking to you is you are out there talking to homeowners, whether you're homeowners yourself, talking to neighbors or people that you work with. And these advanced wastewater treatment systems are different in many ways. And so when I have the opportunity to talk to homeowners about what to expect, we need to have a different expectation and clearly tell that to everyone so that there is no disappointment in what the search situation becomes. So for example, we're very used to just flushing away our wastewater in a deep cesspool and never thinking about it again, right? That's different now. The average cost, number one, for the installation of a nitrogen removing treatment unit, a leaching system, all of the work that goes into putting a new system in, whether that's removing poor soils, adding new soils, clean sand, and the removal of the existing system, based on the past few years, is about $34,000 on the East End towns and $28,500 on the West End towns. In addition, the cost of engineering or design services is separate from that, and site restoration. This will all vary greatly based on a case-by-case basis, based on these site conditions. If your property has different soil types, or if it's hard to access, depth to groundwater. The way I like to think about this is, if you have an older house and you're trying to bring it up to code, you're trying to put a dishwasher in your old kitchen, it's really difficult. We're very used to having these systems that were put in the 1950s as temporary block cesspools that are most likely hydraulically connected to groundwater, especially these properties on the South Shore that are near all these creeks. That is so out of compliance and so not close to what is the current standard that it does take a lot of effort to bring these out of compliance properties up to current code. That's what we need to do in order to protect our water. And so the cost of this installing a new system is not because it's an IA unit. Yes, that system has more components that cost more, but it's really bringing that property up to code and keeping that separation to groundwater intact. We always want to let homeowners know there will be yard disturbance. You know, that could be difficult for a homeowner to understand. But once it goes back into place, everything is leveled out. This is a big construction project. You will then see the covers at grade. That's another big difference. That is because we need to be able to access that system. It's an active treatment system. We need to be able to get in there to sample and to maintain it. There's also control panels that control electronics that are part of that IA system. In addition, there's also required operation and maintenance. This is very important. We do not want our advanced wastewater treatment systems to be expensive septic tanks. There is a requirement from the health department that an operation and maintenance contract has to be in place. Usually the maintenance provider goes out to the system about 2 times per year. And the current average cost of an O&M contract renewal for 3 years is approximately $1,500 or $500 a year. Not to forget, there's also electrical components, repair and replacement costs of some of the components, and pumping costs. So like I said, we're very used to flushing and never thinking about our wastewater. These are all the same components of a sewage treatment plant, but that's also, you don't really think about that, right? You pay your bill and you don't think about that. But we know we cannot sewer all of Suffolk County, and there's areas where we are not able to put sewers in due to cost restrictions, and IA systems will be able to provide that benefit of treating our wastewater to protect our water resources. So, just want to make that very clear, and so if you could continue to spread the information of what to expect. I always like to show pictures to homeowners when I go to civic associations or when I talk to homeowners on the phone. You know, there will be yard disturbance. You are digging up your sanitary system. As Jennifer mentioned, these are temporary nuisances, but they are necessary. If this was easy, it would have been done already. I myself was very surprised by the large pile of sand in my backyard, which was taller than my house. But if you think about it as, ooh, I get to plant some more gardens afterwards and redesign my backyard, you know, it's all about your perspective. But we do know that installers are very mindful of this, and people don't really want to be thinking about their wastewater when they're having a backyard dinner party. So we can try to keep these systems away from the main areas, hide them in landscaping, and you know, be a utility that is kind of hidden away. And lastly, I just wanted to show those control panels that are associated with the electrical components of the IA system. So, in order to get to that clean water, we have a few steps. But we do know this can be costly and it can be a lot of work. And so that is why Suffolk County and New York State have provided millions of dollars of grant funding to help assist the replacement of an existing system with an IA system. So I'll just go into some details about the current status of the Suffolk County Septic Improvement Program. At this time, the Suffolk County Department of Health Services administers 2 grant funding sources for residential properties. One is called the Suffolk County Septic Improvement Program, which is a $15,000 base grant, and additional $5,000 available for the installation for low to moderate income eligible applicants. We pair this grant with a state-funded grant that we also administer at the health department called the New York State Septic System Replacement Program, and that is an additional $10,000. So each grant awardee will receive $25,000 to $30,000 available to install a new IA system through one grant application at the health department, Suffolk County. I just want to point out, both of these words has the word improvement and replacement. That means you have to be replacing an existing system with a new IA system in order to be eligible for a grant. This is not for new construction where you're not making an improvement to the existing conditions. There are also additional funding available from the towns of Southampton, East Hampton, and Shelter Island. And we do partner with CDLI for a low interest loan. We did just receive additional funding, federal funding passed through New York State DEC to help fund properties on the Long Island Sound area. And that will greatly benefit those properties that contribute to the Long Island Sound. But here we are on the Great South Bay. So perhaps one day there will be an additional funding source that will help homeowners replace their existing systems here on the South Shore. That would be a great initiative. But at this time, $25,000 to $30,000 does cover a large majority of the installation costs of replacing an existing system with our grant funding. So some major changes have been implemented at the County Health Department to our existing grant program in an effort to grow for the Clean Water Plan. We currently have a goal to quadruple our grant output with a simplified electronic application and e-sign contract process. Recent changes that we have made to the Septic Improvement Program is that the grant funding increased. We used to have a $10,000 base grant and a $10,000 for $20,000. We were able to increase that in an effort to help homeowners complete their projects. So now the total grant funding, as I mentioned, is $25,000 to $30,000. And our grant contracts are now issued by email and signed electronically. We finally reached the 21st century here in Suffolk County. I know it seems so naive, but we made it. And our county and state grants are combined into one contract. There is less required documentation for homeowners to submit, and a new application process is being launched soon. I did want to mention that one of the major reasons why we increased the base grant amount is because we have hundreds of grant awardees out there right now that have a grant contract in hand and haven't moved forward. There's actually probably about 500. And we think one of the major reasons is because of cost. Costs have increased since the beginning of the grant program back in 2017 due to inflation, and we're trying to meet those demands. And so the folks that do have an existing grant contract for that previous grant amount, we are able to issue a grant amendment to them so that they can amend their grant for the additional $5,000, and they can hopefully move forward with their project as well. Just a simple overview of some of the requirements of our grant program. We have an online application and staff available to answer all the questions. The requirement documents at this time for a homeowner to submit is a copy of their tax bill. I know many towns, they have it available on the website. Not all do though, but tax bill does help show us that the property would be eligible for the grant program. If the existing system does have failure, whether you have to pump it out multiple times, or it's a blocked cesspool, or it's overflowing or collapsing, providing us that proof of failure does allow us to expedite the grant. And we are also making additional changes to the grant program to expand grants to all property owners, not just ones with failures. If the property owner believes they're low to moderate income and wants to apply for that additional funding, we would need a copy of their tax return. And if the property is owned by a trust or LLC or corporation, we do need additional documentation regarding the ownership. The property cannot be in foreclosure or have tax liens. A grant awardee, once issued a grant, must select a vendor from our approved vendor list. We have solicited contractors to be part of our grant program, and this is because applicants then assign their grant payment over to that vendor, and payments are made directly by the county to the vendor. So that way the homeowner doesn't have that large out-of-pocket cost. The county SIP is not designed as a reimbursement program, so applicants must apply for and receive a grant prior to the installation of the system. However, if an applicant is just applying for that New York State SSRP $10,000 grant, they may be eligible for a reimbursement directly to the homeowner. The state grant does currently have that flexibility. And sometimes people didn't know about the grant program and come back to us, you know, a year later and say, oh, can I apply for some funding? And we're able to process that for them. Just some updates on where we have been in our grant program and where we're going. We started in 2017. This was a new program, incentivized program. We had 8 systems in our first year, and now we're over 2,380 systems total that have been funded with grants. As I mentioned earlier, there's over 5,000 IA systems in the ground of Suffolk County total. But it does seem that the majority of systems that are being installed as replacements through our grant program are out east, where those additional funding sources are available from the town of Southampton and East Hampton, and there was earlier mandates in place. So now that we have that countywide mandate in place for construction of renovation and countywide, and we are now increasing our grant amount for countywide, we expect to see an additional increase in the western towns throughout Great South Bay area taking part of our grant program. And as I mentioned, you know, we still have more streamlining to go to take care of our current demand and ramp up for our future expected demand under this clean water plan. In addition to some of the steps we've taken already, we are looking to hire staff. If you're interested, come on down. But I would say we are making some big strides in trying to help homeowners. You know, we talk to these homeowners every day. This is a big project for them. Every single one of these 2,380 was a big project for us and them. And if there's ways that you know, we can work together to try to get every project completed in order to help our water quality, let's plan on getting together on that. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
Are we working?
Can you hear me on this one? Okay, great. So we'll gladly take, thank you first to Jennifer and Julia for your presentations. And we're glad to take some questions from the audience. Oh, wait.
Well, just a quick one.
Okay.
For years, we talked about that 2/3 of Suffolk County is not sewered, and out of 1.5 million people, etc. what is the baseline now? Where are we at as far as numbers of people that have updated systems versus not having updated systems?
So, 5,000 IAs,
Yeah,
which is a drop in the bucket.
So is it still 2/3 are unsewered?
roughly.
Okay, so
But we're
the
expecting,
progress line, the baseline is 2/3,
Yeah.
about, give or take.
yeah, but we're expecting like the next 5 years to start showing the jumps that we're hoping to see. Because you're gonna have like 3 systems come online soon.
And that would move
And
the
together
needle.
with the ramp up of the IA systems, you'll start having a clearer path. It feels a little slow right now,
Yeah,
but-
it's probably a 30-year-old comment.
Yes, raise the microphone, yeah. Sorry, I think, Jennifer, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the number that we've always based on is there's 360,000 cesspools, outdated cesspools in the county, minus 5,000, which have now been, so we're at 355,000, or approximately in that range of the number of cesspools in Suffolk County that need to be addressed. Sure.
I haven't heard anything about Fire Island, and I'm wondering, since there's so many people living on that tiny barrier island, and what's going on there to get people to put these IA systems in?
Julie, do you want, is this on?
I think it's on.
You're good.
Good. Julie, do you have anything, information updated on Fire Island?
No,
Is it on now?
yeah.
Looks like a legislator.
Actually, I want to give a couple updates. I'm also here, I don't know if he was introduced before, from the legislator, Jim Mazzarella, who's also been working with us a lot. But there's a couple updates, and one is on Fire Island. We did a study, did a study about 2 years ago. We were waiting for this new tax to be passed in November, and I'll be meeting with Jennifer and also the county exec the next week or so. Want to do the next stage of the feasibility study for Fire Island, or what's the best way to go. We already got the different, from Cameron Engineering, the suggestions from their study, and from there we need to do the feasibility study, can it work? Other couple of things in the budget is that I worked on last year. One thing better than just being on, someone being on EPA, I'm on budget and finance, so I make sure some things are in capital. I wanted to get started before we even got the new 80% added, is there's a lot more things we gotta do to the bay. We could do all the sewering and IA systems, but that's not the only thing that's gonna bring back the clams and everything else. Got in the budget last year, and we'll be hopefully announcing a little later this year for things with working maybe example with USGS with some things studying our streams, how has the height dropped, what toxins are coming off the roads into it. And I look at my friends that are creek defenders, they got in a year in the last couple of years, so we have to do a lot more of those things. We've learned from the warnings of what happened in Nassau County, and we were warned maybe 50 years ago when we first did the sewers, some things we need to do. Other things is we're looking into, we have got a little money in the budget, is all those sumps we have out there that have now 30 and 50-year-old trees in them. I'm not saying all the county ones do that, but it's really all the levels of government. I think some of ours aren't that bad. But the technology of trees growing in or having sand on the bottom, or now in some places it should be maybe wood chips and other things that maybe remove different toxins. It depends on the area, and we're going to be doing the study of that. And again, is what do we need where? Other thing is any storm drains that may be going to creeks. We should be looking at that. So we did get some money in the budget last year for this year. We're moving forward with that. To answer the Fire Island question, the next step is a feasibility study that we're hopefully, if everything works out, we could be announcing soon that we'll be working on that. I do really thank our legislature and also the county exec really pushing through really all the wishes that you've been lobbying them for 20 years. They're all being worked on right now. And this is our time to get all things you wish. And I just got to, I'm one of the electeds that don't just go to creek to get take a picture. I fell in the creek once when cleaning, and some others. So again, you got in my ear, my passion, and I want to make sure the bay's clean. And I would say that, as I see in the back, my friend Jim Mazzarella, for the South Shore, we want to clean this bay. Besides all the bays, the North Shore, Bannock Bay. We remember back in the 60s and the 70s when I was little, where you just meant doing that in the water means you're digging up to make linguine and clam sauce that night. So I'll be here afterwards.
Thank you, thank you. Rich, go.
Yeah, so I don't think I need it. I got a pretty good voice.
Okay, great.
First of all, I want to thank you for putting this together, and everybody on behalf of our town supervisor, town board. Everybody in this room has got passion for what we're doing here, and I think this is going to be. In 40 years I've been doing this, this is the most fun.
Wait, Rich, you want to say who you are?
Oh, Rich Gross out of Babylon.
Rich Crow, Town of Babylon, Department of Environmental Conservation for Town of Babylon.
So money is the bottom line. And this is the greatest amount between the Bond Act and the ballot, referendum that the county did. I've never seen so much money potentially available. And we really, and the team that the county executive put together is just awesome. You guys are doing great work already. So I think we got to jump on it. One comment I had, we have built sewers before, and I think if we can go for the sewers first and gravity systems that don't require electricity. Low pressure systems need pumps, and I think Patrick, if they're here, I think the homeowner ends up with problems. So I think that route is probably the best way to go. You also can have power outages, and if you have a power outage, your system's not going to work. So I think gravity systems are the way to go, and I didn't know if you wanted, to make any comment on that. But again, thank you for putting this together, and this is really exciting. I've never seen so much funding potentially available.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you. Did you want to, here, you want to use this one?
Yeah,
Just don't trip over it.
Yeah, that's been terrifying for most folks to consider, is what happens if I have a low pressure system put in at my home and we wind up with a hurricane and I'm out of power for 7 days. Because we've all experienced that. What I'm told is that these systems, if there's enough area on the property for the leaching pool, that the systems can maintain themselves, provided you turn down the amount of waste you're putting through the house while we're under one of these situations. I bet you're not running 3 loads of laundry a day while a hurricane is blasted through. But they will hold themselves for a few days until you get power back on. It's probably, it makes you think as a homeowner, is it time to get a generator? So that I'm starting to take care of my own problem and not worrying about waiting for somebody else to do it. So although, yes, it's a concern, we talk about it all the time when we're putting in sewers, and people ask, what's the difference between gravity and these LPSs, how are they working? By and large, they're working pretty well. And if there is an issue, our Department of Public Works gets to the homeowner within a day to see what's going on. But thank you for raising it. We have to deal with the science that we have.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Oh, that's a lot of questions. Bob?
Yeah, I have 3 questions, if I can just throw them together.
Okay.
3 questions. The NRBs, do they require pre-treatment? That's one. Approximate time frame for turning around an application to the approval. Today, I know it's probably going to change with time. And can a person apply for both the county and the town grant? I'm in Southampton. Thanks.
Thanks, Bob. So those NRBs, the nitrogen reducing biofilters, I would definitely invite you to speak to Stony Brook University to get all the details, but essentially the wastewater goes through a septic tank and then is pumped through the NRB system. The time frame for grant processing right now is dependent on the score that the application receives, and that's based on the condition of the existing system. If this property has catastrophic failure, we're able to give them the grant the same day. And so that does affect the wait list. But we know that there has been too long of a wait list and the queue, like you mentioned, which is why we're taking these steps to streamline and be able to issue these grants faster through electronic signature. So over the next few months, we just launched it last month, so over the next few months, we'll start to see that wait list drop back and additional changes we're making. If you're in the town of Southampton, you will be able to most likely benefit from the 3 grant sources, the county and state, as well as the town. The town has different requirements about where the property is located, so you would apply directly through that town.
James?
Sure. So I had actually kind of 2 facts and 2 questions. Just to convey the significance of this, you know, Suffolk County's annual budget is $4 billion a year. We're getting $6 billion a year. So that this is
$6 billion I think in total.
$2 billion for land preservation,
Right.
$4 billion for water infrastructure. That's why. So to put that in perspective,
Not per year.
Not per year, it's over 30 years.
over 35 years. What I'm saying is the annual budget is $4 billion for us, but this is an investment of $6 billion over 30 years in water infrastructure. This is a big deal. I do want to emphasize, and this is significant. Oh, by the way, I'm James Birch. I'm a board member. I chair the Creek Defender Program for Safe Brigade South Bay. Another thing that's significant, 69%, according to Nature Conservancy's numbers, of the nitrates in the bay are for untreated human waste. Okay, so let's be very clear about that. We haven't always been as clear as an organization, but I think we have been for the last 3 or 4 years, and that's important. 69% is untreated human waste. We have to do other things, planting, mitigate, stormwater runoff, a lot of things, but this is the most significant step towards addressing water pollution in the bay. We've lost 95% of our clams. My question though is, Ed Romaine, County Executive Romaine, spoke about, we've learned from the mistakes of prior sewering efforts, that the county is looking less of a sewer plant model and more of an on-site, you know, at a larger scale. So how will that factor into the plan that's developed? Because I really, you know, from a conservation standpoint, it appeals to me because we're recycling ground table water. That's important. Thank you.
I think this is what it's working
It's
now.
working now. Okay, great question. Ed is a huge fan of the consideration of water reuse. And it was written into the state law as well. It was recognized. And we are starting a study for reuse in the area near, I think it's Heartland? Right, thank you. I'm glad you showed up. Yes, Heartland's a very big deal, so we're taking the opportunity to see what we can do about treating the water and then putting it back into the ground, so we're not sending it out to the ocean. So we should have some results from that within a year, and I think what's gonna happen is people are gonna see, okay, it's not just quality that we're talking about, it's actually quantity. So thank you very much for raising it. It's a priority.
Can you mention anything about the current pilot project at Selden that's using the tertiary treatment to recharge the aquifer?
You know what, I don't have any really current details on that, so we'll make a note, and if you want to give us a call or come over and leave Liz your number, we'll get you that information.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is this loud enough? Louder? Okay. This is a question for Julia. About these new systems, you had mentioned the process of aeration in them. Scientifically, denitrification almost exclusively occurs in an anoxic environment. So could you describe what the benefit is that's achieved by aerating these systems first?
Just got to turn it on.
Hi, sorry. So I'm not exactly sure what your question is, but the nitrification, denitrification process in the tank allows for different conditions for the bacteria to go through the different situations. And having no oxygen means that they're able to grab that oxygen off the NO2 molecule, but they also need oxygen to survive, and they need the carbon to survive. We do have representatives from different IA manufacturers here in the back, and they may be interested in giving you all the details of how that system works and others.
They raise their hands.
Can you raise your hands if you're part of the IA
Oh, Joe. Hey,
industry?
Joe.
And so, please, I'm sure he would love to talk to you all about the process.
Good.
Thank you.
Chris? Okay,
So to answer your question really quick, you have to nitrify before you denitrify, so that's why they do that. It's the 1 sentence. But, so my question for Julia, as the director of the South Shore Estuary Reserve, a lot, the majority of the watershed of Long Island comes to the South Shore bays. And, Brookhaven, Islip, Babylon, are, as you mentioned, sort of at a disadvantage without those town matching funds for the septic improvement program. Is there a way for you to quantify what the potential need is in those counties so the program, maybe that somebody is here to represent, could get those funds to those towns to get them on parity with the East End towns to accelerate implementation of the onsite system?
I love this idea, Chris.
Elsewhere. And then we would need our advocates to go to Albany and say to take the money from the now finished Nassau County projects and move it to Suffolk County.
Yeah, our subwatersheds wastewater plan identifies all the contributing areas to the Great South Bay creeks and bays, and so we were able to quantify the amount of priority areas in the South Shore, whether it's on Fire Island or on the mainland, and we were able to quantify this is how much parcels we need to upgrade over this amount of time. So absolutely.
Kevin McDonald from Nature Conservancy.
Thank you. So could either of you give us a higher altitude view of where you think we are in Suffolk County against other parts of the country and the effort that you see at the local level as compared to other places in the country that have similar problems? Are we running far ahead of everybody? Are we behind everybody? Are we right in the middle of the pack? If you used a marathon running analogy, we all consume ourselves with what we talk about, but how does it fit against what else is happening?
I would say we're ahead of the pack because we were one of the first counties to undertake actually taxing ourselves to create pools of money to address the problem when we saw that our predecessors weren't tackling it, and the state wasn't tackling it, and it's really hard to get money out of the feds. And you do see other areas, you look at places like Flint, Michigan, and you absolutely cringe. You're like, wow, how are those people gonna get ahead of the curve? It's gonna take decades. So my short answer is I think we're ahead of the pack, and we continue to do so because on a regular basis the public speaks when we give them the questions. And they generally, by and large, if you see 70% of the people who come out to vote approve of something, I think that speaks volumes.
Great. We have time for one more question. Ron? Oh, sorry. I'll get you 6, Joe. We'll do 2 questions.
I don't need pretty loud. I want to switch it up a little bit and talk about voting for sewers. It makes no sense to our group, James and I, defenders for Connect Watt, that we voted for the money to protect us, and yet when it comes time to put sewers in, we let the residents there vote. Well, some of them are very small-minded. And Kevin knows that, we know we Great River lost the vote by 73 votes from people that were small-minded. Why do we have to vote on something for our health?
Was that a question? Okay, Jennifer, why do we have to vote?
Why do we have to vote? Because right now, the way the code is structured in Suffolk County, we're required to vote. It's put to a referendum. And if you think that the tide has turned in your community and you want to take another shot at it, then speak to your local legislator, come in and speak to us, and we'll see if we can get that back on the map. Everybody should if you feel that vote was tilted somehow for whatever reason, maybe some folks have moved out and others have moved in.
Yes, you know that story, Ray.
Yep.
But you know, now I understand that Oakdale's gonna vote on it. And I talked to the president of the community association, and he's telling me there's people, no. So there you got 40 million, and you might lose it because people are small-minded.
You gotta change their mind.
Right.
Well, I'm over on this side. Okay, thank you.
Got it.
And on a positive note, good day.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for coming. I just have a question. Actually, one comment first. James made a statement about 69% of the water entering Great South Bay is untreated sewage. That's a real cause for alarm. However, I'm not sure where you got the data. I know in 2011, Woods Hole put out a major study, and they reported that 67% of water entering Great South Bay of land-based sources was from wastewater origin, but it wasn't untreated. It came in as inorganic nitrogen, which is by definition treated. Aside from that, Jennifer, you had mentioned that there would be some sort of assessment to the efficacy of all the public works that we're about to engage in. So based on that statement, and again, I don't remember the exact words you used, but to me it just struck that you were going to do an assessment. Now in that same study that Woods Hole did here, 2011, they did determine that there was wastewater derived nitrogen entering the bay, but the takeaway message from that paper was that there was no nitrogen problem in the bay, that the level of eutrophication based on nitrogen loading put Great South Bay, this is a quote from that paper, the annual load we estimate for Great South Bay places it among the lower 10% in the range of nitrogen loads for estuaries in general. Lower 10% means that this bay was very low nitrogen loaded at that time, 2011. So if you have a bay that's a very low nitrogen load in general, what kind of assessment would you make to determine if the big public works that we're engaging in right now are going to be efficacious enough?
My initial reaction is database from 2011 is probably outdated.
Same population.
Yep, maybe it's different in some respects, but what we do have behind us is an extra 12 to 15 years of science that wound up in a sub-watershed plan that was hailed by people across the state of New York. So I'm not gonna outbalance what the more recent science is telling us, which has improved over time itself against the 2011. Seems like an outlier to me.
Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, among the major marine science institutes in the world.
Still far outweighed by current.
Thank you, Jennifer. Well, thank you, everybody. That's all the time we have for questions. There was one question outside. Where do people go for more information on finding what systems are being hooked up to what districts and what areas are the priorities? Is that on your website?
Not yet, but that's going to be part of the work of the Board of Trustees, and we will assemble a list of what projects are going to wind up on the list and the areas that they'll cover.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'd like to introduce, to wrap up our program today, Rihanna Quinrati, board member.
Thank you, Robin, and Jennifer and Julie. I think we all are very appreciative of your time today and the information that you put forth. And I think that we are all very grateful for the efforts that you're putting forward. We feel that we're in good hands. So thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, you saw me last year probably. Welcome to everyone today. I'm here to announce that our second annual Oyster Ball will be held on September 13th of this year. So the second Saturday in September. And we will be holding it this year at the Gatsby location over at Jones Beach. I was over there yesterday and it was cold, but it was beautiful. And what I can tell you is I kept dreaming of Mai Tais as I'm digging my toes into the sand watching the ocean for the cocktail reception. So ladies and gentlemen, we hope that you can join us. If we don't have your information, your name, address, and telephone number where we'll be able to send information to you, we'd like you to drop it off at the desk. And, as Rich said, it's all about the money. And we've been very, very fortunate to have received some beautiful grants to continue the good work that Robin and the rest of the team do. But we need more funds. We need our operational funds, and this is what the gala is all about. It lets us continue to do the great work that we do. So thank you for your support. We'll see you on September 13th. I'm sure you'll hear more about it as we move forward. All the best.
Thank you, Rihanna. And once again, I would just like to say a big thank you to Lessings Hospitality for hosting this. I hope you all have enjoyed some. Oh, sorry. Forgot the raffle. All right, Jennifer, I'm going to have you pull it. I'm going to mix them up. Oh, and thank you to Audrey for putting together this beautiful raffle basket. Okay, I have my glasses. Yep, so we have ticket number 9849942. Winner must be present, so if winner is not present, we will draw another number. Anybody? All right, we'll pull in. Wait, oh, we have a winner? All right. Wait, I'll just read it again. 9849942. All right, congratulations. Thank you everybody so much for coming out, and have a wonderful day. I introduced him to I went to see
Thank you, Renee. Thanks for coming out. Yeah, it's good to get together.
Nice to meet you in person. After what you do. Well, I wasn't even thinking you were here. This is Mike. Hi, James. Nice to meet you. How are you? Let's go meet Mr. D'Angelo. I'll see you. Okay.
I'm just going to